People used to say Elise and I were like sisters. Not in the way that people casually toss that word around when they see two women sharing a lunch table, but really, genuinely close. We met during onboarding at the Paris office of Bellamy & Co., and from the very first week, we just clicked. I was new to the city. She'd been here a bit longer. Elise was the kind of person who remembered your coffee order after one time, who always made space for you to sit beside her during meetings, who'd text you just to say she liked your earrings today. I loved that about her. She was soft, gentle, maybe a little too fragile for this industry, but kind. So kind. I guess I've always been the more forward one. Not in a pushy way, at least I hope not. But I've had to be independent for most of my life. I'm Dutch, grew up in Rotterdam, and my family isn't exactly the call you every weekend type. So maybe I was always the tougher one. But with Elise, it was different. We made space for each other, balanced each other out. And in those first 2 years, I truly thought our friendship would be the one constant in this messy, fast-paced agency life. And then came Julian. He wasn't assigned to our team at first. He was on the strategic side, managing pitches and high-level client relationships. But our paths began to cross. At first, it was little things. A comment he made during a brainstorm that I answered. Then a compliment on how I handled a tricky brief. I didn't think anything of it. I mean, this is work. Compliments are currency here. But it escalated. He started lingering after meetings, sending me messages late at night, work-related, of course, at first. Then more personal. He'd ask about my life, my move to Paris, what I missed most about the Netherlands. He was charming in that way only people who know they're charming can be. The kind of man who listens so intently that you forget you're at work. I should have noticed, maybe, but I didn't. Not really. Not until the day he asked if I wanted to grab lunch. Just the two of us. That was when something shifted. I won't lie, I was flattered. Who wouldn't be? Julian had this pull. He was confident without being arrogant, warm without being clingy. And at that moment, I thought, why not? He wasn't married. He wasn't even dating anyone officially, as far as I knew. But then I remembered Elise, and I hesitated. She had never said anything. Not once. Not I like him. Not I think there's something between us. Nothing. But there were these tiny signs. The way she smiled a little brighter when he walked into the room. How she always volunteered to be in meetings with him. The way she mentioned him in passing, like he was someone she thought about more than she admitted. But again, she never said a word. I can't read minds. I'm not one of those people who can sense jealousy or tension unless someone spells it out. And we were adults, weren't we? If Elise had feelings for Julian, wouldn't she have told me or told him? So I told myself it was okay. That I wasn't doing anything wrong. That if something was unspoken, then maybe it didn't really exist. That was the only way to move forward without guilt. We went to lunch. Then lunch turned into dinner. And then, well, it became something more. Slowly, quietly, it turned into something real. All the while, I still treated Elise the same. Still shared memes with her, still waited for her by the elevator, still sent good luck messages before client calls. But she changed. She started pulling away. At first, it was subtle. Shorter replies, fewer invitations to grab coffee. Then it became obvious. She started sitting at the far end of the room during meetings. She stopped laughing at my jokes. When I texted, she left me on scene. I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I wasn't hiding anything. Julian and I hadn't even made things official yet. And if she felt hurt, why didn't she say something? I kept thinking, if it really mattered to her, wouldn't she speak up? As Elise drifted away, I found myself confused rather than guilty. I'd always assumed our friendship was strong enough to survive anything, even the awkwardness that comes when two people care about the same man. So when Elise began pulling back, I interpreted it as her problem, not mine. After all, she was the one who was so sensitive. I was simply doing my job, and wouldn't it be healthy for her to learn to stand on her own 2 feet? The lines started to blur one afternoon when we were both working on that major retail proposal. Elise had sent me her first draft, 40-odd slides on consumer psychographics, all elegantly laid out, and asked for my input. I spent an hour tweaking a few headlines, refining some data points, offering the odd comment on tone. Nothing major. I hit send, and went back to my own work, thinking nothing more of it. The next morning, our inboxes pinged almost simultaneously with Julian's approval. "Great work, Amara. Let's go with your version." I blinked. My version? I opened the deck he'd attached and saw the slides I had revised, fleshed out as if I'd built them from scratch. My heart pounded, but I justified it immediately. I hadn't stolen anything. I'd only offered help. If Julian chose my edits, it meant they were better. It meant he trusted me. It didn't mean I'd betrayed Elise. Meanwhile, Elise stopped asking for advice. She would glance at my screen in passing, but her eyes were distant. At lunch, she declined my invite to the usual bistro down the street, saying she had other plans. In meetings, she no longer chimed in. She sat silently, arms folded, as if her own ideas had been drained away. When I joked about brainstorming together after hours, she forced a smile and murmured, "I'm swamped." I believed her. That was the kind of person Elise had always been. Conscientious to a fault. If she was busy, I couldn't blame her. Meanwhile, Julian's behavior toward Elise shifted too. Where he once greeted her with a warm nod and a quick question about her weekend, he now barely noticed her presence. He had started to turn to me for clarifications. "Amara, what do you think about this new direction?" he'd ask in front of her. And I would answer, thinking I was simply being supportive. I was lifting him up, ensuring the project stayed on track, just as he'd once done for me. Whenever Elise let slip that she felt overlooked, "I don't know why I bother," she said quietly one afternoon, I would reassure her. "You're amazing, Elise. People just get busy. That's all. Men sometimes get tunnel vision on work." I meant it. I had to believe it. Because if Julian's casual distance and my unexpected prominence were the only problems, they were problems that didn't require confession or guilt. They only required patience and perseverance. But the final straw came at a late-night client debrief. We'd presented two versions of a consumer engagement strategy, Elise's emotionally driven narrative and my more metrics-focused roadmap. The clients, unimpressed with the sentimental approach, gravitated toward my data-rich slides. I watched Elise's face pale as the room applauded my work. My heart twisted in my chest, but again, I told myself it wasn't my fault. I hadn't pushed my version. I'd simply been prepared. I'd done my job. On the drive home that night, I tried to call Elise, but she didn't pick up. I left a voicemail. Short, sweet, apologetic. "I'm sorry if I made you feel sidelined. That wasn't my intention. Let's talk tomorrow, okay?" I wanted her to understand that I was still her friend, still her ally. But her silence answered me more clearly than any words could. She had chosen not to respond. She was punishing me, yet I was the one paying the price. When I arrived at the office the following morning, Julian and I crossed paths in the hallway. I attempted a casual morning, but he barely looked up. His expression was neutral, bordering on dismissive. I felt a pang of hurt, not for myself, but for Elise. Because I realized then that in trying to justify my actions, in insisting that I was just doing my job, I had failed to see the human cost. I had helped undermine the one person who once stood by me unquestioningly. That afternoon, I found a note on my desk. Elise had left the agency 2 weeks' notice. No explanation, just a goodbye email to the team. As I read the words, something inside me cracked, an ache of loss, betrayal, and regret. I told myself again, I did nothing wrong. But the silence she left behind said otherwise. She couldn't handle it. And in that moment, I understood that sometimes doing your job isn't enough to save the people you care about most. For weeks after Elise left, I told myself I'd done nothing wrong. I told myself that I was the diligent colleague, the dependable strategist, the one who met every deadline and exceeded every expectation. If Julian chose my edits, it was because they were simply better. If clients praised my approach, it was because I'd earned it. Their praise wasn't a betrayal of Elise. It was recognition of my own work. When I stayed late at the office refining those slides, it was to ensure the proposal was airtight. I was never plotting against Elise. She'd been the one to hand me the draft in the first place. She asked for my help, so I helped. That same night she'd gone home and cried. I was sending Julian a polished deck, confident and detailed. I hadn't thought to check if she felt sidelined. Why would I? She'd never told me. And telling me felt, well, embarrassing, like admitting weakness. Sophie, one of the juniors, asked me once, "How do you handle it when people take credit for your work?" I laughed. I don't let them, I said before steering her back to the PowerPoint. In my mind, I was advising her to assert herself, because that was exactly what I believed I'd done. I wasn't worried about Elise. I was worried about myself. I was determined not to be the kind of person who sits back and lets others define her worth. And so I dove in completely. I volunteered for late-night brainstorms. I restructured the deck at 2 a.m. I pitched extra ideas over Slack, then turned on my camera for impromptu video calls to discuss them. Every time I saw a message pop up from Julian, "Great insight, Amara. Let's integrate this," I felt a surge of pride. This was my moment, my chance to shine. I wasn't stealing space. I was claiming mine. I didn't see the hurt I caused. I believed that hard work deserved reward. When Elise's original framework evolved under my edits, I thought I was simply making it stronger. If Julian preferred my version, that was his prerogative. He was the creative director. His opinion was final. How could I be blamed for doing exactly what he asked? When the promotion email arrived, Amara DeVries is our new senior strategist, I was elated. This was the role Elise once held, but I wasn't thinking about her. I was thinking about how far I'd come, about the long hours and quiet determination that had led me here. If Elise felt betrayed, that was her problem. I hadn't stolen her job. I'd earned mine. Looking back, I realized there were moments I could have paused. I could have invited Elise into my office and asked if she was okay. I could have acknowledged her contributions publicly, cited her name alongside mine. But I didn't, because I wasn't about recognition. I was about results. I believed results spoke for themselves. I believed I was helping the agency, helping the team, helping Julian. I never saw it as taking from Elise. Friends told me I'd changed. "You're more ambitious," they said. "You don't stop." I laughed it off. "This is who I've always been," I said. And it was, but I had never before been given the stage to prove it. This time, Julian handed me the mic, and I spoke. When Elise finally quit, I felt empty. Not guilty exactly, but hollow. The victory of "I didn't need her" rang false. Because in winning that role, I'd lost the person I trusted most. And no promotion could fill that gap. I mourned her departure in private, late-night calls to my sister in Rotterdam, tearful retreats to my apartment, questioning why I hadn't seen her pain. I never stole her ideas with malice, but I still took them. I never meant to hurt Elise. Yet the office is not a place of mercy. It's a place of ambition, of choices, of consequences. And sometimes, in doing your job, you leave others behind. Now, I stand in her old office, doorplate gleaming with my name. I walk past her clean desk and feel the weight of everything I gained and everything I lost. I tell myself I'm proud. I tell myself it was necessary. But the silence left behind echoes louder than any client applause. I didn't steal anything, I keep saying, but some things can be taken without force. By being first, by being louder, by being the one who fills the space no one else claims. And for that, I'm not sure there's a justification that feels enough. It's funny how time moves on, with or without your permission. One day, you're sharing takeout sushi at your desks, laughing about how no one in the Paris office knows how to spell millennial pink correctly. The next day, that same desk is empty, cleared out in silence, no goodbye, no note, just absence, thick and sharp like glass in the air. After Elise left, the atmosphere at Bellamy & Co. shifted, but no one dared mention her name, not even Julian. The team adjusted quickly. They always do. A few weeks later, I was sitting in her old seat at the weekly leadership meeting, taking notes on initiatives she once led. I didn't ask for the seat. It was offered. Naturally, efficiently, quietly. Julian and I, well, we evolved too. There was no grand moment. Just more dinners, more late-night walks along the Seine after deadlines. One evening, while sipping cheap wine from paper cups by the canal, he asked, "Do you ever miss her?" I paused. "I miss who I thought she was," I replied. And it was true. I missed the Elise who celebrated every win with me, who called me her anchor, who whispered secrets about our creative director like teenage girls at a sleepover. But I couldn't miss the Elise who ghosted out of my life without a word, who glared at me across the open office, who let silence become punishment. Julian moved into my apartment 3 months after she left. It wasn't planned. He just never left one night, and we never really discussed it. Like so many things in our lives, it just unfolded, naturally. When he proposed, it was during a pitch trip in Copenhagen. I was presenting a branding concept about transformation, how legacy doesn't have to mean being stuck. Afterward, he took me to a quiet pier and handed me a ring box. "You've transformed me too," he said. I didn't cry. I don't cry easily, but I smiled like someone who finally believed she was exactly where she was meant to be. We didn't invite Elise to the wedding, not because we were cruel, but because it would have been awkward. I didn't want her to sit through toasts that made her feel like a footnote. I didn't want her to fake a smile through vows that would scrape too close to old wounds. I told myself, protecting her dignity was a kindness. Did I feel guilty when I saw her name pop up on the guest list draft someone else made? Yes, for a split second. But then I deleted it. Because here's the thing, I cannot apologize for being happy. People love stories with villains. It helps them sleep better at night, thinking hurt always comes from evil. But what if it doesn't? What if it comes from choices, from timing, from silence, from two people outgrowing a space they once filled together? I never set out to win anything. I just stopped waiting for someone to notice me. I stepped forward. "Elise?" She froze. She stayed behind, waiting for fairness to find her. But fairness doesn't operate on feelings. It rewards those who claim their place. Now we live in Amsterdam. Funny how life loops. A month after our honeymoon, I got a mail from a boutique agency there. A partnership opportunity. I smiled when I saw the address. Same street Elise once mentioned working on. I don't know if we'll cross paths. I don't even know if she'd recognize me anymore. But I do know this. I've built something. A life, a love, a legacy that feels earned. And while some might call it betrayal, I call it becoming. Elise chose to stay stuck in a version of our friendship that no longer fit. I chose to evolve. And no matter how you tell the story, that's a choice too.